Is there something historically missing between the eastern part of Nigeria and the western part of Cameroon? Why do both regions have separatist movements seeking independence? To understand this, we must journey back in time, before colonization, before partition, before the world turned its back on their struggle. Long before European conquest, the lands we now call Eastern Nigeria and Western Cameroon were thriving communities with rich histories. Igboland was one of the major centers of the Bronze Age, home to a diverse range of culturally related but linguistically distinct groups. It was the heart of the Aro Confederacy, a powerful economic and religious network that controlled commerce, including the transatlantic slave trade. To the east, what is now Western Cameroon was a land linked to the Atlantic trade through the export of ivory and, tragically, enslaved people. Both regions had their unique identities, but they were about to be swept into the turbulence of European conquest. In the late 19th century, European powers carved up Africa in a diplomatic game of chess. Cameroon became one of Germany's few West African territories. If it had remained intact, history might have been different. But after Germany's defeat in World War I, the League of Nations handed its lands over to Britain and France. The eastern half went to the French, the western half to the British. Britain, however, did not govern Western Cameroon as an independent entity. Instead, it was placed under the administrative authority of southern Nigeria, whose capital was in Enugu, deep in Igbo-dominated territory. This created an influx of Igbo settlers into Western Cameroon, causing tensions with the native ethnic groups. They saw the Igbo as interlopers and feared being politically and economically overshadowed. As the winds of independence swept across Africa, British Cameroon was faced with a difficult decision. Would they join Nigeria or Cameroon? Many in the region were illiterate, and the referendum question was phrased in simple yet ambiguous terms: Faransa or Ingresa, French or English? In the north, the decision was clear. The region had historical ties to the Sokoto Caliphate and saw Nigeria as home. But in the south, where fears of Igbo dominance loomed large, joining French Cameroon seemed like the better option. They assumed that their agreement with Cameroon's government would grant them a degree of autonomy. Both regions ended up regretting their choice. In Nigeria, the northeast remains one of the most marginalized regions. In Cameroon, the French-speaking government in Yaoundé quickly reneged on its promise of autonomy. The people of Western Cameroon, now known as Southern Cameroons, found themselves politically and economically sidelined. By the late 1960s, eastern Nigeria was engulfed in turmoil. The Igbo, feeling marginalized and targeted after pogroms in the north, declared the independent state of Biafra in 1967. The Nigerian Civil War followed, a brutal conflict that left millions dead, mostly from starvation. Biafra was ultimately crushed in 1970, but the dream of an independent Igbo nation never fully died. Over the years, various movements, most notably the indigenous people of Biafra, or IPOB, have reignited calls for secession. Meanwhile, in Western Cameroon, discontent simmered. By 2016, protests erupted against the government's efforts to erase the English legal and educational systems. These protests were met with violent repression, leading to the declaration of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia in 2017. Today, both Biafra and Ambazonia exist in a state of limbo, fighting for recognition, struggling against military crackdowns, and facing international indifference. What do these separatist groups truly want? For some Biafrans, the goal is an end to systemic marginalization. Others dream of an Igbo-led Nigeria. And for the most radical, only full independence will do. For Ambazonians, the battle is about survival as an English-speaking minority in a country where they are treated as second-class citizens. Many would settle for real autonomy, but after years of betrayal, others believe that independence is the only way forward. The irony of it all? The English-speaking peoples of eastern Nigeria and western Cameroon share a history, a culture, and a struggle. If they had been united as one country, they might have formed a stable, prosperous nation. But history took another path. What does the future hold? Will these movements succeed? Or will they be written off as yet another chapter of forgotten African struggles? One thing is certain, the fight for identity, justice and self-determination is far from over. Thank you for watching. If you found this documentary insightful, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more historical deep dives. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning.